Welcome to Silicon Spin, the show that tackles high-tech issues. I'm your host, Adam Lashinsky from TheStreet.com, sitting in for John C. Divorak. Before we introduce today's panel of pundits, remember, you too can be a pundit. Visit our website at siliconspin.com and express your opinion for a chance to win your own Silicon Spin mug. Today's topics on Silicon Spin. The White House eases up on high-tech exports. Is it too late or too soon? And George W. battling for the hearts and minds of the high-tech industry. We'll talk about what he's promising and what he might deliver. First, let's introduce our panelists. Charles Ardai, CEO and President of Juno Online Services, an ISP offering free and paid Internet access. Previously, he worked at D.E. Shaw, an investment bank. Christine Herron, CEO of Mercury 2, a business-to-business global e-commerce enabler. We'll discuss that. Previously, she worked at NetObjects and was a venture capitalist. Yolanda Bloxham, online producer for ZDTV's Cybercrime show. Previously, she produced the sites for ZDTV News, Big Thinkers, and our own Silicon Spin. Oliver Muto, co-founder of Epicentric, which provides integrated e-commerce hubs, whatever that is. He also worked at Touchwave and Random Noise. Welcome to all of you. The White House has relaxed the rules on exporting high-speed computers. Now it's okay for 50 countries, including China, Russia, and India, to buy more powerful machines. The computer industry has lobbied long and hard against the restrictions, saying they penalize American companies. The change doubles the speed of computers allowed to be exported without government approval. Plenty of restrictions still remain. Yolanda, do you think American companies are still at a disadvantage because of these restrictions?
It's hard to say. I don't necessarily think so. I think that basically what the exports, they raised so that it's a single machine with 4 processors, basically 4 of the IA-64, the new class of Merced, which are now Itanium.
Let's take a step back before we get into it more. I mean, what is it that the government is concerned about in the first place?
I think they're worried.
Why am I worried about sending some bells or gateways to Pakistan?
They're worried that the innards can be either networked together or somehow used to create a supercomputer, which could be used for military purposes. And I think that that's something that they should be concerned about. One of the things that I was at a hacker conference this last weekend called DEF CON, and one of the things that came up.
That sounds good.
One of the things that came up some of the hackers said, "Well, why are you so busy trying to bust us when we're trying to show you your vulnerabilities?" That's another story. When you let all this, you export all these things that can be used for building military supercomputers in other countries, and the Department of Defense official who was there under the gun said. Well, first of all, it's a different department. So this is the Commerce Department. This is the Trade Department. It's not the military that is releasing the spec. So that's sort of one thing to keep in mind. That this is the Trade. This is the Commerce Department saying, well, we want to help our U.S. companies to be in the trade. To have global trade and to be competitive internationally. So I think this is a good move.
You need a balance too. I mean, a lot of companies get 30 to 40% of their revenue from outside of the country. So to the extent they can't sell in other countries, it's not a good thing.
What's your sense of the timing? Why is this happening now? I mean, we tend to talk about this issue. It seems every year or so, right?
I think it may have something to do with the elections that are around the corner.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, the other thing has to do with every year, the machines get better, so you now need a new rule and something else needs to be released. No one cares about this year's computers, that the export restrictions have been released on them.
That was, when Steve Jobs first released the G4, it was classified as a supercomputer, and it's, this is, at a certain point it becomes absurd.
True, but at the same time, though, I think certain political parties are trying to make the case that they are very attentive to the needs of folks in the technology industry.
Yeah, they're trying to make hay, but we opened an office in India, and I'll tell you the hardest thing was not recruiting the staff, it's not retaining the staff, it's not setting up the space, it's getting the damn hardware. And it's
because of these restrictions.
These restrictions, but there are restrictions that the foreign countries put on, there are restrictions the U.S. government puts on, there were cryptographic restrictions, there are a whole set. And this kind of barrier does make it harder for U.S. companies to take a global stand.
Yeah, without digging deep into the issue, my sense has always been I don't understand why the restrictions exist at all. I mean, it's sort of like the...
Worry about uranium. Don't worry about
right. I mean,
well, there's no product without restrictions. I mean, but bananas have restrictions. Lipstick has restrictions.
Okay.
Computers are certainly going to have restrictions.
And some of these restrictions are valid. I mean, the thinking behind some of them is valid. You'd hate to have a military supercomputer building weapons that are used against the United States.
Made out of U.S. computers.
Exactly. Why did we send them the machines again? But again, there's a balance. I think there really needs to be, a balance there.
Well, we should send them machines with bugs in it.
Just send them Microsoft software. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Taxes are forbidden.
How hard are the parts to get, though? I mean, a lot of these parts are not made in the United States in the first place, right? And a lot of them are fairly generic. You mentioned putting them together is what makes them powerful.
Well, one of the things that is big now in the world of supercomputing is kind of distributed computing. So you can create like a Beowulf, or you can have Apple does. There are people who use them with apples, and they're called, I don't know, apple seeds or something. I forget what they're called. But you can make them out of practically any type of hardware, whether it's an x86 or Spark, or you could have it running Linux or any operating system.
I understand we even have restrictions on once they're out of the United States on what we allow people to do, where to send them. They can't be sent into Libya even if they're already in here.
That's right. Yeah.
That's probably exciting.
They prevent people from moving them from one country to the other and back into a country that's on that list. So.
All right, we'll do more politics later on. Coming up on Silicon Spin, Time Warner unlocks the door to its cable network. We'll talk about what this means for the open access debate. Stay with us. Welcome back to Silicon Spin. Steve Case was willing to spend billions to gain access to Time Warner cables. Before that deal's even done, however, Time Warner is letting another ISP use its broadband pipes. Juno Online is the first outsider allowed on the high-speed cable network. Coincidence or not, it comes as federal regulators debate the monopoly potential of the AOL Time Warner deal. Charles, does it bother you that the deal may help your biggest rival, AOL, get even bigger?
Not in the least. AOL has done a terrific job of getting big. I don't criticize them in the least. I am happy, however, to have been able to steal a jump on them. I think Time Warner has begun to realize that it's not just good for consumers. I think everyone realized that, for there to be open access and a variety of choices over the cable network. It's actually good for them, too. I mean, hell, they offer multiple movie channels, multiple news channels. I don't see why they would offer only a single flavor of access.
Before we go on, we referred to Juno as being a paid and a free ISP. Explain what that means.
Well, we have more than 3 million people who use Juno every month. That makes us the third largest in the country after AOL, which is much larger, and then Earthlink, which is a little larger. Of the 3.38 million active users, 730,000 are paying for premium service, and the remainder are using a basic free service.
Right, and you guys started with just an email service, so you guys are an ISP almost like Hotmail is an ISP. I mean,
No. We're actually a real ISP. When we started, we were actually providing the internet access, but all we let you use it for free was email, because it was too expensive to give away the rest for free. But we actually were providing the access. Hotmail never provided the access. Today, we actually provide full web access. The vast majority of our users have complete full web access.
Okay, how long were you negotiating with Time Warner?
This took a while.
The other thing is that they said that you guys are not direct competitors with AOL.
I took that personally, actually. I mean, we're smaller than AOL.
Well, and it seems like you do have a different model. So a lot of it is free.
That's right. AOL currently only has billable services. A company like NetZero only has free. We're the only company out there that has both free, billable, and broadband. We're very excited about it. But the fact remains that we're not a threat to AOL as long as we're significantly smaller. So I'm not worried if they consider us below their radar. That's fine. But we are a direct competitor.
Okay, let's take a poll. Who believes that Time Warner is doing this out of the goodness of their heart, other than Charles?
Well, which is great because I I've done some poster child work for AT&T and Excite at Home out here. But so the question is, where are Mindspring and Earthlink, and why didn't they get brought in ahead of you, since they, in theory, were doing all this work on the open nets earlier?
Well, I can't answer when they were brought in, but we
invited to the party.
Yeah, what happened to those guys?
We negotiated for a long time.
They're too busy merging themselves.
That actually may be true.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, but let's get to the key issue. How much effect did Time Warner kicking Disney's ABC television off its cable network help your negotiations? Did things suddenly get lighter at that moment?
The answer is no. We actually found it no harder, but also no easier to negotiate with Time Warner over the last few weeks than negotiating with WorldCom when we did that deal, or with AT&T to get on their cable system. They acted like a respectable, responsible third party. This is not a whitewash. They actually behaved in good faith and earnest. Now, it remains to be seen how they behave when the spotlight is off them, but so far the signs are positive.
Explain the economics a little bit. You said you're paying them. What does that mean?
Well, to be fair, we're not paying them directly. What's happening is that the revenue comes in from a subscriber. This is a paying service, a broadband service, and we'll split the revenue. And a piece goes to Time Warner, a piece comes to us. We can't say exactly how much goes each way, but the agreement specifies for ad revenue how much gets split each way, for subscription fee revenue how much gets split each way.
So you're paying for the road essentially. So
we are.
And to use the road, you share the revenue.
Exactly right.
Good model.
It's the same thing we do with WorldCom, Sprint, Concentric, all the rest.
So is the open access debate over? Is this the last chapter of it? Now we can move on to something else?
No, I don't think so. I think the road can only hold so many people. So once you
Why we want to be the first.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's still going on strong here in San Francisco. Those guys are still working on lobbying on Excite at Home.
Yeah, it's a very hot debate. I don't think it's over.
But it seems like the cable companies now, a year ago they were intransigent. They sort of won their court battles. But there's been a sea change.
Yeah. It's a tectonic shift. You would never have believed this. A year or two ago, I thought we would have to go to court and fight like crazy to achieve this. In the end, business negotiations went out.
I mean, you can understand that, though. It's very near and close to their hearts, because essentially what they did was they built a road. And because they built a road, they said, guess what? Because we built it, we're the only ones who can use that road.
At great expense, by the way.
At great expense, exactly.
They never fail to point out.
And then other people came on the scene and said, well, we'd like to use the road, too, because it's already there.
But there's a significant social interest in this case to letting consumers have multiple choices over this road. There is only one such road, and you've got to have open access.
Exactly.
No, there
makes sense to build multiple.
No, but there isn't only one road. I mean, a typical market has a cable duopoly. There's satellite. There's fixed wireless. There's all sorts of ways to get on the internet. So why should the cable companies have to?
In certain parts of the country.
This isn't the telephone system.
And it also wasn't built with public money. It was built with risk capital. So it's very good.
And it's very expensive. Why duplicate the pipe if it's not being used to the fullest extent? At the
But I
same
feel
time.
like there's so much money that's thrown in the infrastructure. Why set up multiple infrastructures? And why spend all that risk, all that VC money on just duplication?
Well, in part, I suppose, because not one has necessarily worked all that well. We're at a
the consumer choice thing again, right? You keep spending more money, you keep providing more services. You're going to get better and cheaper. And
in the long run, you're going to want fiber. In the short run, everything is a half solution. The DSL solution has distance problems. The cable has shared bandwidth problems. Ultimately, you will have to see another network built, but that's going to cost billions and take years.
Okay, so you're not the number one or two player in a very interesting industry right now. Give us a view of what's that?
What number 3?
Okay. How many can it take, and what does the access business look like 3 years from now?
Honestly, I would guess if it's a half dozen, it's probably one or two.
A half dozen what though?
A half dozen
Time Warner Cable, an internet access provider?
They'll probably do some things on their own, but I suspect that there will be a distinction still between the people who own the pipes who don't have any particular expertise providing a user experience that's satisfying. The people who specialize like Juno or AOL in user experience don't necessarily own the pipes. It's a very different world.
All right, Charles, you're off the hot seat for the time being. Coming up on Silicon Spin, Intel chips in to help teachers in Silicon Valley. Stay with us. Welcome back to Silicon Spin. Silicon Valley was created by people working out of their garages. Now it's forcing some people to live in them. With housing prices reaching epic levels, local schools are having a tough time attracting teachers. Intel is now sponsoring a housing assistance program with the Santa Clara Unified School District, where teachers get $500 toward their mortgage payments every month. The school district also is building a 40-unit apartment complex for teachers. Oliver, do you think big companies are doing enough to solve this problem?
No, I think it's a move in the right direction. I think it works at a number of different levels. Intel is being more socially responsible by doing this, but I think it's also a good investment. I mean, if you think about it, where will we get our next workforce? There are kids. And in order to make sure, they become the next workforce, we need education. So if teachers cannot afford to stay in this area, it's really going to hurt technology in the long term. I think what Intel is doing is realizing that level. I think other companies need to take a similar step if we're going to have, viable economy here in 10, 20 years.
Well, I think it's just a drop in the bucket, and I don't think it's very effective because Intel is not addressing the pathology, the underlying problem is that they're not being paid enough.
What's the pathology?
You say it's not enough. I mean, Intel can't solve all the problems. I mean, this is one company.
Well, first of all, the teachers have to pay back the money that they have.
Maybe Apple can join Intel here and
So before we take Yolanda, what's the pathology you're talking about? That's a strong word.
That people don't value education enough. People don't pay teachers the same that they will pay engineers. And I'm not saying that engineers are necessarily overpaid. I'm saying that teachers are underpaid.
How can Intel change that?
And this is the effect of a market economy.
Well, maybe we move to the company town model, just like in the Old West, and you have the schools run by Intel, and you've got the hospital run by Intel, and teachers can't leave.
As long as all the computers, Intel computers, somebody gets to sponsor, the cafeteria.
I do think it's a good first step, but it really isn't quite enough, and I think you pointed out a good problem. I think even in major universities, it's hard to hold on to engineering professors because they are all going to join startups. There's a serious issue.
But the other thing is, it's not Intel's problem to solve. I think it's good that Intel is trying to solve this problem. But there is a problem. But I think the question is Intel doing a good job of trying to help address it?
In more mature business communities, so, a Chicago or a Philadelphia or a New York, the civic community often gets together and you will find 20 companies announcing an initiative to do this sort of thing. This isn't the Silicon Valley way, I don't think.
No,
should it be, though, Christine?
Well, I actually have two minds about that because on the one hand, yes, being involved, in the community, especially in a community where a lot of the businesses have been so successful and they have wealth to share and to, make the environment better, that's great. But if you don't identify, underlying issues, the pathology of the problem, you can't put the burden on corporate America if you don't have the support from the other side, from the public service area, that's actually going in to support these teachers as well. So on the one hand, yes, and I think Intel's doing a good job. It's a good first step. The payback in 5 years, I have a problem with.
Explain that. Payback what?
Well, according to the program, you had at the end of 5 years have to pay Intel back. No,
right.
You have to pay them back and take on the full mortgage payment. Taking on the full mortgage payment makes sense if in theory they've had their salaries increased and they can now pay for it. But paying the money back to Intel, where does that come from?
Terrific.
Here's the answer. You take the recruiting departments from the Silicon Valley companies that have been so successful and you make them work 1 month a year to find the best teachers, and you give the teachers stock options in any company founded by one of their students.
Not a bad idea. Or you can set up a fund of all the companies that participated in the program, throw the stock options there, diversify it to the teachers. Okay, so what's Juno Online Services doing to this?
We're not doing anything. we're still a startup. We're still working on it ourselves.
I am dropping my Juno service.
All right. We're providing free internet access.
Yolanda, you've got 30 seconds to solve the problem right now. Just to cure the pathology. Go ahead.
I think that teachers should be paid a lot more.
How are you going to affect that?
Tax Intel more. I'm a big believer in trying to use government to effectively solve these problems. And we didn't even get to the other part that I really liked, which was about the janitors.
Bring it up.
The other half of this question had to do with the janitors working for Oracle who are making $17,000 a year cleaning up after engineers who are making six figures because
$17,000 a week. Maybe.
Right, because but they don't work for Oracle, they work for a separate company. And I say, well, hey, the union is going to come to Silicon Valley and it's going to blow through like a tornado. And I say, bring it on.
A union coming to the Valley to represent janitors wouldn't be the same thing as unionizing software engineers in the Valley, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
although that's an interesting thing to bring up too.
They don't want unionizing engineers. Yeah, but they'd have to give up their goodies to do it. I mean, would you hire unionized engineers?
No comment.
I don't think the hackers who went to DEF CON would join a union.
Exactly.
No cultural mix.
You can have a hacker union.
I'd like to see the meeting.
Okay, but is it the Wayne? Is it the downfall of the valley if we don't solve this problem? I mean, if workers can't find a place to live and their children can't find a place to go to school,
that's the problem.
How will we have good companies?
I mean, I think we need to find solutions to the problems. I think Intel is moving in the right direction. I think other companies, as Christine said, who have benefited from actually being here and working here, should become a part of the solution, not part of the problem.
What we need is 20 or 30 companies at once. Anyway, coming up on Silicon Spin, call him W, call him Shrub. Now he's the Republican nominee. We'll talk about what George W. Bush is promising the tech industry next.
Unified around great principles.
Welcome back. The balloons have fallen. Now George W. is picking up the pace, riding out of Philadelphia on a train and campaigning hard for the high-tech vote. The Bush campaign promises to allow more H-1B visas and extend the moratorium on internet taxes. Christine, when both parties come calling, it seems like the tech industry stands to benefit. You get to play a resident Republican today. What does it mean?
Well, there are a couple of interesting things about that. First of all, if you're looking at sort of the environment out here, you've got Republicans outraising the Democrats 3-1 on average.
In Silicon Valley generally.
In Silicon Valley and Bay Area. If you're looking at the platforms, actually the Democratic platform is usually a little more tech-friendly, but then because the Bush campaign is separating from the Republican Party platform a little bit, which is interesting.
Go into that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
The Republican Party platform is a little more into imposing new controls, export controls, things like that. For example, McCain putting in a measure to go ahead and make sure that you have, blocking software in the schools and in libraries, which goes directly against the stuff in the Bush Party and the Bush campaign platform. So you then have this issue of like, well, is it really the Republicans that are moving along in Silicon Valley, or is George Bush who's trying to move along in Silicon Valley? And there's a big difference there.
If you had to boil it down, Charles, what does the tech industry really care about? What do they want out of their presidential candidate?
Well, I think the issues that you mentioned are exactly right. It's not the censorship of content, whether you call it censorship or protection of children, one way or the other. I don't think that's the key issue. I do think taxes are a very big issue. I think that there are a number of issues with regard to open access and other issues. I'm surprised to hear, actually, that the Republicans are outraising the Democrats. I was talking to Torricelli, and I got the impression that it was exactly the opposite. But I think it's natural that both parties are going after this crowd because this is where the money is now. It will be interesting to see if
why do you rob banks?
Well, exactly. And if the market downturn will change their behavior. So, of course, a lot of people who had a lot of paper wealth, the paper wealth is now evaporated. Will the parties just both back off and say, I'll go talk to somebody else?
Both have a fairly similar position on internet taxation, don't they? I mean, who's better on internet taxation, Bush or Gore?
I think probably Bush has spent more time thinking about it and speaking to it. And I think we've seen more on the part of the Republican Party listening to folks here in Silicon Valley. I think maybe the Democratic Party has taken this for granted because, as Christine said, there's this perception they're more technology friendly. I think in the recent couple of months, I think we've seen a lot on the part of the Republican Party to really find out what makes things run around here.
So very quickly, does Bush have an opportunity to win California? Yes or no?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's a very real possibility.
I think it's real either way, actually.
The two of you against the polls. I'd like to thank our panelists, Yolanda Bloxa from ZDTV, Charles Ardai from Juno Online Services, Christine Herron of Mercury 2, and Oliver Muto from Epicentric. I'm Adam Lashinsky of TheStreet.com, in for John C. Divorak. Thanks for watching Silicon Spin.
Debating the hot topics in high tech.
Hello, I'm Adam Lashinsky. Today on Silicon Spin, faster computers for the Russians and Chinese, more ISPs gaining access to high-speed cable pipes, and keeping teachers on the job in the high-tech heartland, and what's next for George W. Bush? Can he deliver on his big promises to the tech industry?
Silicon Spin, coming up tonight at 11:30, 10:30 Central, only on ZDTV. Coming up tonight at 11:30, 10:30 Central, only on ZDTV.